to the Gems podcast with Shom, where we celebrate hidden gems and give them their shine. We dive into lesser known music, rare records, vinyl culture, and the worlds of jazz, funk, soul, rare groove, and international heat. This is for all you music lovers, sample hunters, beat diggers, e-diggers, and musical travelers. I'm Shom. I'm a longtime record collector, music lover, and music researcher who discovered music in reverse. I started off as a huge hip-hop fan. I still am a huge hip-hop fan. I kind of learned by tracing breakbeats, samples through jazz, funk, soul, psych rock, and everything in between. Digging is really endless to me. I've always been fascinated by the context, history, and characters behind the music. We're here to explore lesser known records and how they found new life, whether it's through reissues, samplings, popularized through music or film, or otherwise. Some of you may be music experts, OGs who've been in the game for years. Others may be new and learning, but that's all good. The goal here is to enjoy this music together and explore. I'm personally forever a student. Some of these artists I followed for years, while others may be recent. What ties them together is a spark of discovery. That flame, that fire, you'll know it when you hear it. We'll start with a series of artist features, profiling them and enjoying their sound together, talking about their history and what makes them relevant today. In this debut episode, we'll unlock the legend of Cortex. My thesis here is really that music is timeless. Art in this world is timeless, and there's tons of art out there waiting to be discovered. Cortex is a prime example. Their album Trupo Blue is a brilliant album, jazz fusion with a psychedelic feel, with rolling drum breaks, soaring vocals. It's a true grail record, a holy grail record that has been repressed on vinyl and also available, of course, virtually, and is seemingly everywhere these days. Cortex's music feels like the soundtrack to a film that was never made, sitting in a cafe in Paris with your sunglasses on, watching the story unfold. It's peak jazz fusion to me. Their song Wheat October 1971. Firstly, all of these songs, the titles are in French. My French is terrible. Despite being Canadian originally, you'd think I would be able to speak better. I don't. But I don't want to butcher these names, so let's just kind of ignore my poor pronunciation. Let's hear Wheat October 1971 by Cortex. You can hear that kind of dreamy layered sound, the warm Rhodes piano tones, the crisp drum sounds, the haunting vocals. It's really an amazing track, and their whole album, 1971, is like that. It's important to me because, it was interesting. I heard this song in, I guess, a club or a bar called APT around 2007, maybe. And I just moved to New York, and I was going out a lot, maybe kind of enjoying the nightlife more than you would, but that's okay. And I remember often going to this place called APT, great DJs, great music, not only the kind of music I like, but kind of teaching me new music through DJing, which is rare in this world, and I really appreciate that. I was a huge Madlib fan, huge Dilla fan, still am, huge MF Doom fan. Really big on the group J-Lib, which is a collaboration album between Madlib and J Dilla. And they had a song called No Games, which sampled Wheat 1971, Wheat October 1971. And also MF Doom released a song, a great song, one of my all-time favorites, One Beer, with the same sample. And I remember hearing Cortex being played late at night on the dance floor. I was going crazy when this came out, and I was like, wow, what is this record? I mean, I walked over to the DJ who I guess I'm a nerd. I talk to them sometimes, and I was like, "What is this record?" And he gave me the record. I look at the cover art. I was like, "Wow, this is crazy." I guess that experience is something that used to happen back then. Maybe less so now, but I remember just that feeling of being so excited to hear it and kind of seeing the cover art through the DJ. It was awesome. So it's got this great place for me, this great music. I decided to organize the show into segments to tell the story behind the music. Our first segment, Chopped Up Gems. A lot of the music that we'll talk about has been sampled and given an unexpected new life through sampling. In this case, I'll play the song I mentioned earlier, One Beer by MF Doom.
I get no kick from champagne. Their alcohol doesn't thrill me at all. So tell me why shouldn't it be true? I get a kick out of brew. There's only one beer left. Rappers screaming on it.
I personally am a huge MF Doom fan, and One Beer is one of his greatest songs to me. What I learned looking through the history for this podcast is this song was intended to be on the Mad Villainy album, which is a collaboration between MF Doom and Madlib, an all-time classic album. And I didn't realize this song was produced by Madlib. I thought it was produced by MF Doom, who is a great producer in his own right, and he really chooses beats that complement his flow, or the other way around. I'm not sure, but the end result is great. It's a certain sound that only he has. Working with Madlib took it to another level. I mean, their album is a classic, a timeless classic. I realized that kind of through research that this song, One Beer, was released as a limited 7-inch single. It was supposed to be on the Mad Villainy album. Instead, it's put up by MF Doom, and it ended up being on his separate album, 2004 album, Food, which is a great, great album. If you haven't checked it out, I really recommend it. And I've noticed that MF Doom in the past few years, unfortunately he passed away a few years ago, he's more popular than ever. You know, I guess that's a good thing, right? It's great music. I'm glad to see it popularized now. Sometimes you wish artists were around to see their peak years, but I mean, he had a great career, a long career, and a lot of success. One of my all-time favorite artists. I know that this same sample was used by J-Lib, also produced by Madlib, where Dilla raps on it, for their song No Games on their Champion Sound album. However, it's not actually on the album, it's the original version. The version that I hear now on streaming platforms is different with a different sample, a different beat. It may be very well that, at least in terms of sampling, who discovered this record is Madlib. All-time beat digger, loop digger, as the song goes, a great producer who's been doing it for a long time and is just as relevant today as he has ever been. This sound, this combination of rappers giving space to music, this production by the master Madlib is magic to me. He's a legend, a giant, a personal favorite of mine. Let's go through some other songs that have sampled Cortex. Here's Visions by Wiz Khalifa.
Life, looking out the window, cushion orange juice, nigga.
Wiz Khalifa, great tasted beats, good production, a good sound. He also kind of has a good ear for music. Great sample there. Here's another song by Cortex, Prelude, A Go Round, off the same album. Off the same album, Trupo Blue, Prelude, A Go Round. Similar sound to Weed October 1971. Also great in its own right. Rick Ross, just looking through some of the history, Rick Ross has sampled, and producers that I've worked with, has sampled Cortex at least 2 or 3 times. For example, Amsterdam off his Only God Forgives, I Don't album. I think the way Rick Ross raps, the subject matter he raps about, I think it just blends so well with the samples from Cortex. I think that production is really, really great. I really enjoyed it. Produced by Cardiac, working with Rick Ross. Also, Oyster Perpetual is another song by Rick Ross. Also samples Troupeau Bleu album, produced by Dave and Dawn. Another song, Rick Ross, Everything a Dope Boy Ever Wanted. So it really goes on. Lots of samples of Cortex. He seems to really flow well on those beats. He's got a great ear for beats. Lupe Fiasco, a track that I discovered, uses a Cortex song called Chaison un jour irrivé. Terrible pronunciation. Off the Troupeau Bleu album. Great sound, cohesive sound off this Troupeau Bleu album by Cortex. Let's give a listen to Mural, just a short listen. It's almost a 9-minute song. Lupe really goes off on that record. It's like 8-9 minutes of rapping, and he really does well. I've always thought Lupe is a good rapper. It was great to hear. There's a few different kind of sounds off this Troupeau Bleu album. I'll play a song, Mary HF, that has become kind of repopularized because of the up-tempo vibe. It's kind of a dance floor track. Check it out. Mary HF was also released as a single. It's kind of in the past few years as a 45 single. Again, become repopularized. Another song, Sabat Part 3, off the same Troupeau Bleu album. You could really hear those soaring vocals, rolling drums, that cohesive sound of that album. Just to give you an idea of some of the other work by Cortex, here's a song, Les Oiseaux Morts, off a separate project by Cortex. You can really hear those drums, a bit of a different sound, more of a psych heavy drum sound. I could hear kind of those producers out there really wanted to chop that kind of sound up. I think it sounds amazing. Another interesting one off a kind of never initially released record called Indiet 79. Here's a song by Cortex, I Heard a Sigh. Again, you could hear that fusion sound, that Rhodes sound. I think it's really great. I believe that's sampled by Raekwon. I mean, it's really very popular. with producers to sample from Cortex and use it in a new way. There's so many other great tracks. I highlighted only a few. In this segment, Behind the Beat, we'll talk more about the origins of Cortex. The story is really about several people named Alain, oddly enough. Band members named Alain. Alain Mignot is the originator and founding member of Cortex. He also met with someone else, oddly named Alain Gandolfi. They formed Cortex in 1974 in Paris. It's odd that, reading through and imagining the environment, Alain Mignot, jazz musician, was walking around the American Center in Paris. He's originally French, and he saw a poster in which a guitarist and bassist said they're looking for someone to play with, basically people to jam, and they got together and simply formed a band. I think that's so handmade, people looking at a sign and getting together. I love that kind of thing. In the digital world, maybe less common. There are pluses and minuses to everything, but I think it's so kind of quaint in a way. People get together like that. I think that's awesome. Alain Mignot, again with Alain Gandolfi. Alain Mignot, pianist, composer, singer, arranger. Gandolfi, drummer, percussionist. As well, Mirel Delbray, who we'll come back to. Alain Labib, alto saxophone. That's the third Alain. Jeff Hunter and Jean Grivette, bass. Their album Troupeau Bleu was recorded in 1975 outside of Paris. It was released on Paris-based label Paris Disque Espérance. The highlight in terms of kind of looking at Cortex, why did this sound come this way? Why? I mean, it's a fusion of jazz, funk, soul with a kind of cinematic feel. It's interesting when you think about jazz back then, American music is often borrowed from in different parts of the world and reinterpreted in a new way. Jazz is very much that way. In the modern world, this happens quite quickly through the internet. Back then, music was also, again, popular globally, but there was the concept of jazz festivals throughout Europe where American performers would go and do quite well, performing all over Europe at these festivals where the music would become popularized in a new way. And I think Alain Mignot, being a French jazz musician and again interpreting a lot of these American originally music in his own way, created this super cool sound. And when you think of the kind of musical context in the mid-70s, I think it created this kind of background for a piece of art like Troupeau Bleu to be created. When we look at the discography of Cortex, they had Troupeau Bleu, their main kind of seminal album, Volume 2 as well, Pourquoi, Indiet 79, which was released more recently as an unreleased album. It was released in 2006, and as well Cortex Rare and Lost Tapes, released in 2023. One thing I'd like to learn more about is their recording techniques, the use of analog equipment in mid-70s France. How was that different? What made this kind of unique mix of environment and recording styles to create these classic tracks? I would love to speak to an engineer about that and really kind of uncover more about why this was made and why it sounds so amazing. Cover Art Chronicles. This is kind of something I'd like to do during each episode where we can talk about like why the experience of cover art, right? And kind of read through the liner notes together. You can see here a lot of negative white space, light blue or kind of dark blue imagery, beautiful fonts across the top, thinner fonts along the bottom, a kind of a membrane, a cortex, an outer layer of an eye seemingly looking at a series of, seems like gazelles or deer in some way. On the back cover, you can see images. There's Mirel Delbray with the vocals, a lot of the equipment, recording, and then across the back, the track listing, and really a little bit of information about the group, not too detailed. I kind of like the experience of looking at cover art. It's something I enjoy while listening to music. I wanted to get some of that feeling across to you. I don't have the vinyl for Cortex. It's something I'd love to have one day. I figure looking through it together gives you that feeling, that vibe. Player Spotlight. Mirel Del Bray was featured on almost all the tracks. And you'll notice many of the samples I played earlier also feature the vocals heavily. Mirel Del Bray, after kind of looking into it, was Alain Mignon's wife, right? Her vocals were a key factor in making that album, Troupeau Bleu, a cult classic. Sadly enough, she passed away not long after the release of Troupeau Bleu, which I think is terribly sad and kind of romantic in the sense that this young person made this beautiful piece of art and then passed away. And it's almost like this album, Troupeau Bleu, is captured in amber and it's not easily recreated. And it's a magic that you can't just make again. I mean, she's passed away, the time is gone, and maybe my mind is getting away from me. But when I think about these records and read the liner notes, kind of go back in my mind, it's cinematic. I make a whole world out of it. And poor Mirel Del Bray passed away, again, a young person, only recorded on one other track or one other project from what I can tell, with someone named Helios Morrison on Mauritius Independence album or record. So, I mean, it's pretty different than Cortex. And I just find that so interesting, her passing. Then and now, the segment we talk about what's happened since the creation of this work in the mid-70s. Cortex broke up in 1981, but was reformed by Alain Mignon in 2009 with a new group of members. The record label Jazz is Dead, started by producer Adrian Young, who is a great producer in his own right, great sound, multi-instrumentalist, soundtracks, great music on his own, as well as producer Ali Shahi Muhammad of A Tribe Called Quest, one of my all-time favorite producers, right? One of my all-time favorite bands. Those are both great musicians in their own right. They have a label, Jazz is Dead. They gave a second life to Cortex. In 2022, Cortex toured the US, performing all over Los Angeles, New York, Hall of Williamsburg, where they had star-studded shows. There's a great article on the internet where the people who attended, the magic of the event, it seemed like quite a show. They also, oddly enough, played in Toronto 2024. And two of my best friends, musicians themselves, producers, and they're like, hey, you got to come to the show tonight. We got tickets. And I'm like, I can't. I had some things to do. And, in the evening, I start getting all these texts and videos. I'm like, oh, man, you're missing it. And I felt, wow, I really messed up. I should have went. I should have stopped everything else I was doing. But, that's how life goes sometimes. And it makes Cortex even bigger to me. I think Cortex is a great band. Even when kind of preparing for this podcast, sitting in a coffee shop, doing a bit of research, I heard it kind of play through the speakers in the coffee shop. This is just a generic, not ultra cool coffee shop, but it seems like Cortex is everywhere. And I love how this music made way back in the mid-70s is finding a new life with new fans all over the world. It really kind of goes back to my thesis. Art's timeless in this world. There's art out there waiting to be discovered. And Cortex is like finding a long-lost masterpiece. It reminds us that great art never really fades. And I think that's so kind of amazing to appreciate in this world where things kind of move fast. So it's a full circle moment for Alain Mignon, an underappreciated legend that deserves his day in the sun. I'm glad that he's here to see it. I encourage listeners to explore Troupeau Bleu and the other works by Cortex, buy their vinyl, listen to it on streaming platforms. Maybe you'll have it on your turntables or in your car or in your earphones, leading that French movie in your life. I checked many resources like Who Sampled and Spotify to explore this, Discogs, of course, and I encourage you to do the same. Thanks for joining me on our very first episode. I figure I explore music for fun. It's what I do when no one's looking, and I have been doing this since I was a kid. I know there are other people like me out there with similar tastes. I figure why not celebrate these gems together?